Imagine what would happen if one day you check in your calendar and you see this. Today is one of these days. Well, probably that day you will have plenty of things to do. Think about it. How many times have you said to someone, hey, one of these days I call you so we have a coffee? Or one of these days I'm going to call this girl and I'm going to tell her what I feel. Or even better, one of these days I'm going to talk to my boss and he's going to listen to me. Well, let me tell you that one of these days actually means never. Because when you check in your calendar, what you see in there is months and numbers, but not one of these days. So that day will never arrive, and still we keep looking forward to it. So let's talk about heroes. I love stories. I'm myself a storyteller. And since I was a child, I had a dream, who is becoming a hero, like in the stories I love. Then I learned that heroes are in the stories to inspire people, to make us better, to help ourselves to become heroes. But you know what? Everybody who ever told me that always sounded like a father telling his son, hey son, you shouldn't smoke, this kills you. So what went wrong? Why I'm not a hero in my everyday life? So the stories I love were telling me to go beyond, to explore, to fight evil, to make the difference. And now you think like I'm going to end like Don Quixote. Now, fighting just to make the world better. Oh. Well, I'm fine with that. But I promise to myself, I'm going to be a hero one of these days. So the story that inspired me the most was Star Wars. You know the story of the farmer boy who lives in the middle of the desert with his uncle. One day became a hero and saved the whole galaxy. Well, that's epic. So I wanted to be like him, but I'm not as brave as Luke Skywalker. I'm just me. So I still hope to become a hero one of these days. So quite recently, I discovered why we are not heroic in our everyday life. Because it's uncomfortable. A hero needs an event that changes that circumstances that it lives for the opportunity to discover yourself as a hero. So what's the secret of Luke Skywalker for being so cool? Leaving aside he has a lightsaber, and that always helps. He never wanted to be a hero. He never wanted to fight evil or even to defeat the most dangerous man in the whole galaxy, who is, by the way, spoiler alert, his own father. So that's tragic. In the very beginning of the film, he met Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan said, yeah, you have to come with me, and we are going to save the princess, and we are going to save the galaxy, blah, 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 blah. I said, no. I just prefer to stay here farming the desert with my uncle, even if he hates that life. Destiny interferes in here. Why? Because the bad guys kill his uncle and his aunt, destroy the farm he was living in. So he was lost in the middle of the desert. He lost everything. So wait a minute, I thought. If this kind of trauma is necessary to become a hero, maybe I'm not sure if I want to be a hero. Yeah, it's hard, but think about it. Would he left home if nothing happened? Probably by that time, he will be still looking at the horizon with the two suns and thinking one and again and getting old thinking, I'm going to be a space pilot and I'm going to join the rebellion. one of these days. So I remember many years ago, I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and we were fantasizing about being visual effects artists. We were working, doing tiny things, and we were saying, hey, we should go to London and work in big films and become superstars and glory. And we were just daydreaming. We knew, even we haven't said that was going to happen one of these days. But I remember that night very, very well. It was April the 5th, 2009. And I remember very, very well because that night, an event changed my life. At 3:32 in the night, a earthquake hit the Italian city of L Aquila. And I was living there with my wife. So I lost everything in there. In less than 22 seconds, I lost home, I lost my business, and I lost even a tiny bed and breakfast we have just for having an extra income and to pay the mortgage. So it just left me out in the street where everything is collapsing and everyone is screaming, and I was just lost in my pajamas with not even shoes at 4 degrees, and I have to admit it, I was terrified. So much that I couldn't sleep under a roof for a few days. I was sleeping in the car, or sometimes I couldn't even sleep. So when I moved indoors, finally, on one of those sleepless nights, I was staring at the ceiling, hoping it wouldn't collapse with me. I was thinking, this is kind of funny. Because now I'm in the same position as Luke Skywalker when destiny called him. I lost everything. So, I thought probably it's time to learn the ways of the Force. But in Star Wars, Luke started learning how to use a lightsaber. No worries, I know lightsabers doesn't exist yet in real life. But have a look at the video I did while I was living in a tiny, tiny hotel room that the government provided us right after the earthquake. I did this. Isn't it cool? Okay, I know. It looks amazing, and you're having a lightsaber, you feel so epic, and but it was kind of miserable just to shoot that. That was the corridor of the hotel I was living, and I just grabbed the camera of a friend that was in there, and I was just, at 3 a.m. in the night, just doing this, and even doing the sounds with the voice, because it sounds cool. And I remember it was an old man who passed in front of me and was saying, yeah, it's cool, but, it's not what I wanted. I know this video is not a masterpiece, but Luke had a real lightsaber. What I had was a laptop. So I decided to dedicate myself to the noble art of visual effects compositing. So what is compositing? Why I like it? It's because it's a mix between technology, art, and science. So I always wanted to work in art. Everybody loves art, but paying your bills with art, that is difficult. So working just in art wasn't suiting that position where I lost everything. So then I think, well, I love computers. My mother used to say that I love everything that has lights and buttons. So I said, okay, so I want to work using computers and I love art, but how can I do it? Well, I found what I really love as a job, which is digital compositing, because you add science. So our work is actually to synthesize the world and to create that into numerical values and create some kind of images. I mean, there is no magic in there. The art of compositing is actually the art of putting different images, more than two usually. Those images can be from different sources, can be photographs or images created by the computers or different films or whatever. But you put them all together to look like they have been shot under the same lights with the same camera and lenses at the same time. My job is actually there is no job in there. So when you look at a film and there are visual effects, but you don't know, well, compositors are working. The sad part of my job is when it's well done, nobody notices. No glory. But when it's well done, you really believe in magic. And that is really, really nice. So instead of just telling about it, why don't I show you? So let me show you a bit what is the art of compositing. So in here, this is Nuke, the software we use for compositing. What you see here, this is a node. So every node is kind of an operation. So what we have in an image is actually this, pixels. Every pixel has 3 values, just to create the color. One for red, one for green, one for blue. When you manipulate those values, you are not doing like black magic. No, you are doing mathematical operations. They are numbers. So in here, I just put an operation that is a multiplication. So what happens if I take all the values in this image and I multiply that times 2? Bing! Well, your image now looks brighter. What's happening here? Well, I transform an idea, I want the image to be brighter, into a mathematical operation, which is a multiplication. So this is the principle of compositing. Every time I talk about I work with computers and I do visual effects, people think, you press the red button and everything is done. Not exactly. Have a look at how many red buttons you have in this script. Yeah. Every tiny operation and every tiny arrow you see in here is representing a state of this compositing until you get at the very bottom that you see the final image, which is this. So I put a monster that is chasing this man. Let me show you the result, the final result of the image. Yeah. Of course, in here, you know that the monster doesn't exist, because monster doesn't exist in this case. But so many times you have been watching visual effects and you have no idea. And that is, that is our jobs, OK? So I have always many people supporting me to be an artist, OK? Starting from my wife, that I couldn't make it without her. But when I was a child, my father was telling me, yeah, if you want to be an artist and you are happy doing it, do it. He was my hero and my mentor, my Obi-Wan Kenobi. I lost my father around 10 years ago. I don't have even, my mother died also. So I just resting here trying to honor their memory, just to try to be the best version of myself. I now look like Bruce Wayne, Batman, honoring the memory of my father, okay? But I don't wear a cape. So, now that we talk about Batman, it's fine because it was my dream to work in a Batman movie. 3 years after the video doing ridiculous broomstick lightsaber, I was working on this film, which is The Dark Knight Rises by Christopher Nolan. So in here, I was working with the maximum technology for filming, which is IMAX. It was in one of the coolest films I ever seen. And you have noticed that I show you almost everything I did in the film. Not everything, but almost everything. And it was so brief. Well, I was working around 6 months to produce less than 20 seconds of compositing. So there is a lot of red buttons to press in there. So they were the best 20 seconds of my compositing career at the moment. So chasing my dreams makes no hero of me. You know, I do what I love because probably I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people that loves me. You know, I achieved some of my dreams, not all. But I spent all my childhood wanting to be a real hero, to save the world, to make the real difference. But the concept of hero could even be non-universal, like in stories. To be honest with you, everybody could be their own hero. When I lost everything that night, I met many real heroes, from the firefighters who risked their life to save mine, to an old lady that 2 or 3 days after the earthquake, I was wearing my pajamas and walking in the street, just going to get food. And from the balcony, she said, "Hey, come here, come here." And she gave me clothes. So when she gave me the clothes, she was telling me stories about the clothes because they used to belong to the late husband. And it was in that very moment that I realized that a hero is someone who is brave enough to make a decision to unleash a personal growth with the will to be better, to push your own limits, daring your own pain, leaving behind the self you know in search of the one you could be if you weren't afraid. So only then you realize the truth. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And that's hero's life. So you don't need to save the galaxy. The journey is here. So now that event changed my point of view. So every time I check my calendar, the date is quite the same. The date is now, and the place is here. Because I prefer to be a Don Quixote and fight against my own windmills than being one of these days Luke Skywalker. Thank you.